We just got a massive information dump about the upcoming trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day, and honestly, some of these details are absolutely wild. The movie comes out in less than 6 months, which means we're looking at a July 2026 release, and somehow we still don't have an official trailer online. Sure, there was that leak back in December that spread across social media before getting taken down, but Sony has kept everything else locked down tight. Now we're hearing that when the official trailer finally drops, it's not going to be identical to what leaked. There will be familiar scenes, moments we've already glimpsed in that bootleg footage, but Sony is adding new material that wasn't in the December leak. This is a smart move because it rewards people who've been patient and waiting for the official release, while still giving the folks who saw the leak something fresh to get excited about. The source of this new information is Chris from 3C Films, who's been pretty reliable with Marvel and Sony scoops in the past, so there's reason to take these details seriously. And if even half of what he's saying is accurate, Brand New Day is shaping up to be one of the most ambitious and game-changing Spider-Man films we've ever gotten. Let's break down everything we're hearing about this trailer and what it tells us about where the MCU is taking Peter Parker next. The trailer reportedly opens with Spider-Man having an interaction with the Punisher, which immediately sets a different tone than we're used to from Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies. Peter is confused about what Frank Castle is doing there, and Punisher tells him he's saving him. This exchange establishes that we're dealing with a darker, more street-level story than the previous trilogy. The Punisher doesn't show up for alien invasions or multiversal threats. He operates in the grimy corners of the Marvel universe where organized crime, corruption, and violence are the primary concerns. Having him appear in a Spider-Man film means Peter is operating in that world now, dealing with threats that are more grounded, but potentially more personal and dangerous because of it. The fact that they have cute banter suggests the film is going to balance the darkness with the charm that makes Spider-Man who he is. Peter can be in the worst situations and still crack jokes, still try to find the humanity in every interaction. And that contrast with someone as brutal as the Punisher creates interesting dramatic possibilities. We're apparently going to see a scene where Spider-Man webs up Punisher's guns, a visual representation of their ideological conflict. Peter doesn't kill, doesn't believe in lethal force, and won't stand by while Frank executes criminals, even if those criminals are genuinely terrible people. This kind of moral clash is classic Spider-Man storytelling, forcing Peter to defend his principles even when it puts him at odds with potential allies. There's also going to be a scene featuring the Punisher's battle van, which is an iconic element of the character that we haven't really seen properly utilized in live action before. The Netflix Punisher series gave us glimpses of Frank's tactical approach to combat, but the battle van represents a different era of the character, one that's more visually striking and comic book accurate. Having it appear in Brand New Day suggests Sony is leaning into the comic book aesthetic in ways they haven't before with the MCU Spider-Man films. Those movies were deliberately sleek and modern, with technology that felt plausible and grounded. But a battle van covered in weaponry and armor? That's pure comic book excess, and it's exciting to see Sony embrace it. The van scene probably serves multiple purposes in the narrative. It's a set piece that showcases the Punisher's methods and resources. It creates an opportunity for action sequences that involve vehicle combat rather than just hand-to-hand fighting, and it visually establishes that this movie is playing in a different sandbox than Homecoming, Far From Home, or No Way Home did. Now let's talk about the action, because what we're hearing is genuinely thrilling for anyone who appreciates well-choreographed fight sequences. According to these reports, there's going to be a montage of Spider-Man fighting bad guys alongside members of the Hand, and the fight choreography is being compared to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That comparison is significant for a couple of reasons. First, Shang-Chi had some of the best martial arts action ever put into a Marvel film, with fight scenes that felt like they belonged in a top-tier Hong Kong action movie. The bus fight, the scaffolding sequence, the final battle, all of them showcased a level of choreography and cinematography that elevated the entire film. Second, and this is the key detail, they brought back Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi, to helm Brand New Day. Even more importantly, they hired Jackie Chan's stunt team, the same crew that helped define Hong Kong action cinema for decades. This isn't just marketing hype about the action being good. This is Sony making a concrete investment in bringing genuine martial arts expertise to Spider-Man's fighting style. Peter Parker in the comics is an incredibly skilled fighter who uses his spider sense and agility to create a unique combat style that's part acrobatics, part improvisation, and part calculated precision. The previous MCU films showed glimpses of this, but they never fully committed to showcasing Peter as a martial artist. Brand New Day seems determined to fix that, giving us action sequences that highlight not just Spider-Man's powers, but his technique and creativity in combat. One of the more emotionally weighted moments in the trailer involves Peter visiting a grave, and the assumption is that it's Aunt May's. She died at the end of No Way Home in a scene that devastated Peter and served as his Uncle Ben moment for this iteration of the character. Seeing him visit her grave would be a powerful reminder of what he's lost and why he's continuing to fight despite having no support system left. But here's an interesting possibility that's worth considering. What if it's not May's grave? What if, in the timeline reshuffling that happened at the end of No Way Home, Uncle Ben's grave now exists in a way it didn't before? We've never gotten confirmation about whether Ben Parker existed in the MCU timeline or what his relationship to Peter was. If Brand New Day reveals that Ben's grave is there and that Peter has memories of him now, even if those memories are complicated by the spell, it would add a whole new layer to Peter's emotional journey. Either way, the grave scene serves to ground the film in Peter's grief and isolation, reminding us that despite the superhero action and the comic book villains, this is fundamentally a story about a young man trying to figure out who he is after losing everything. We're also getting our first look at Michael Mando's Scorpion suit, and the description suggests it's a fusion of the classic comic book design and the Insomniac Games version. This is exactly the kind of adaptation choice that gets fans excited because it shows Sony is pulling from multiple sources to create something that honors the character's history while still feeling fresh. The classic Scorpion suit is green and bulky with a massive mechanical tail, very much a product of Silver Age Marvel's aesthetic. Tombstone is also going to appear in the trailer, played by Marvin Jones III, and apparently there's a scene where he explains the 3 life cycles of a spider. This is fascinating because Tombstone in the comics is a crime boss, a physical powerhouse with albinism and enhanced strength who controls large portions of New York's criminal underworld. Having him deliver exposition about spider life cycles suggests he's not just a bruiser in this film, but someone with knowledge about what's happening to Peter on a biological level. This connects to another major detail we're hearing about, which is that Peter is going to meet with Bruce Banner to discuss gene mutation. Banner is one of the world's foremost experts on gamma radiation and genetic alteration. So if Peter's powers are evolving or changing in some way, Banner is the logical person to consult. The fact that these two scenes are both in the trailer, Tombstone talking about spider life cycles and Peter meeting with Banner about genetics, strongly suggests that Brand New Day is dealing with Peter's powers on a deeper level than any previous Spider-Man film has attempted. And this brings us to the most shocking detail in the entire leak, the one that's going to dominate conversation once this trailer actually releases. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is apparently going to be wrapped up in a cocoon at some point in the film, and when he emerges, he's going to have organic web shooters. That's right, Peter will be able to produce webs from his own body like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man did in the Raimi trilogy.
It's my web fluid. It's for my web shooters. Why? Whoa! That came out of you.
Yeah. You can't do that, huh?
No.
This is a massive departure from the MCU's established version of the character, who has always relied on mechanical web shooters that he built himself. Those web shooters were a key part of what made Tom Holland's Peter Parker feel like a genius inventor, showing his scientific mind and technical skills. But organic webs change everything. In the comics, Peter briefly had organic webbing during the storyline where he was transforming into a literal spider, a mutation that was horrifying and transformative. If Brand New Day is adapting elements of that story, we're looking at a film that goes to some genuinely dark and body horror adjacent places. The cocoon imagery especially suggests a metamorphosis, a literal transformation where Peter's biology is evolving in ways he can't control. This isn't just a power upgrade, it's a fundamental change to who and what Spider-Man is. The source also mentions that Tom Holland is absolutely ripped in the cocoon scene, which makes sense if Peter's body is undergoing a transformation that enhances his physical capabilities, even beyond what the spider bite originally gave him. This could tie into the Shang-Chi style fight choreography we're hearing about, giving Peter not just better technique, but enhanced strength and agility that allows him to fight in ways he couldn't before. There's also something symbolically powerful about Peter literally shedding his old self and emerging as something new. No Way Home ended with Peter completely alone, with no one remembering who he is, living in a cheap apartment and making his own suit. He was starting over from scratch, and Brand New Day seems to be taking that fresh start to the next level by literally transforming him into a new version of Spider-Man. The cocoon represents death and rebirth, the end of one phase of life and the beginning of another. For Peter, who's lost his identity, his relationships, and his support system, this physical transformation might be the external manifestation of the internal changes he's going through. We're also hearing about scenes that deal with Peter's emotional state and his relationship, or lack thereof, with MJ and Ned. There's apparently a sequence where Peter is stalking them from a distance, watching to make sure they're okay but not approaching because they don't remember him. This is heartbreaking on multiple levels because it shows Peter still cares deeply about these people but has accepted that he can't be part of their lives anymore. The stalking language might sound creepy, but in context, it's Peter's way of maintaining some connection to the people he loves while respecting the boundaries created by Doctor Strange's spell. We're also getting a scene at a party where Peter sees MJ kissing another guy, presumably her new boyfriend, and Peter has to look away. This is the kind of emotional gut punch that defines Spider-Man stories. Peter makes sacrifices that go beyond physical danger. He gives up his happiness, his relationships, his normal life, all in service of being Spider-Man. Watching MJ move on with someone else while Peter stands alone in the crowd is a visual representation of the cost of his choices. Let's also consider the marketing strategy Sony is employing here, intentionally or not. The December leak created awareness and generated massive discussion, but by not releasing an official trailer until now, they've kept that conversation going for months. Every few weeks, new details leak or new rumors surface, and each time it reignites the discussion and brings Brand New Day back into the spotlight. This is guerrilla marketing at its finest, using controlled leaks and strategic silence to build anticipation without spending money on traditional advertising. When the official trailer finally drops, it will feel like an event because people have been waiting so long for it. The trailer will trend worldwide, will dominate entertainment news cycles for days, and will probably break view count records in its first 24 hours. That's the kind of return on investment that makes the delay worth it, even if the delay wasn't originally strategic. There's one more element worth discussing, and that's how Brand New Day is setting up Peter's future in the MCU. If this film involves a biological transformation that gives Peter organic webs and enhanced abilities, if it deals with his isolation and his attempts to rebuild some kind of life for himself, and if it establishes him as a street-level hero operating independently from the Avengers, then it's essentially creating a new baseline for the character. Future Spider-Man films won't be origin stories because we've already done that. They won't be about proving himself to Tony Stark or the Avengers because that chapter is closed. They'll be about a more mature, more powerful, more independent Peter Parker dealing with threats and challenges that are personal rather than cosmic. This creates space for Sony and Marvel to tell different kinds of Spider-Man stories going forward, stories that feel fresh and distinct from what we've seen in the first trilogy. Brand New Day isn't just the fourth Spider-Man film, it's a soft reboot that maintains continuity while shifting the tone, the style, and the focus of the franchise. The trailer, whenever it finally arrives, will be our first real test of whether this ambitious vision actually works. We'll see if the tone can balance Peter's isolation with Spider-Man's inherent optimism and humor. We'll see if the street-level threats feel significant enough after we've watched Peter help save the multiverse. We'll see if the body horror elements of the transformation play as genuinely unsettling or just as another superhero power upgrade. We'll see if the Punisher partnership creates interesting moral conflict or if it's just fan service. And most importantly, we'll see if Tom Holland can carry a film where Peter Parker has no support system, no tech from Tony Stark, no friends who remember him, just his own strength and determination. Based on what we're hearing from these leaks, Sony and Marvel are betting that he can, that audiences are ready for a darker and more mature Spider-Man story, and that the character is strong enough to anchor a franchise that looks and feels completely different from what came before. If they're right, Brand New Day could be the beginning of Spider-Man's best era in the MCU. If they're wrong, it could be a fascinating failure that teaches us valuable lessons about what works and what doesn't when you try to radically reinvent a beloved character. Either way, it's going to be one of the most discussed and dissected films of 2026,